The human warrior attended an alien wedding as a guest and married the king's eldest daughter. Kale Torson had never imagined he would attend an alien wedding. He had fought in battles across countless star systems, faced creatures that could crush a starship with a flick of their limbs, and survived traps that would have destroyed entire colonies. Yet here he was, standing on the edge of a floating platform that stretched over the shimmering seas of Violia, dressed in clothes that were far too formal for his liking, and trying very hard not to look out of place. The invitation had come weeks ago. The Zarithian royal family, rulers of the Violian cluster, had sent a delicate holographic scroll, shimmering in shades of gold and violet. It was addressed to Kale by name, and its wording was both flattering and perplexing. You, brave human warrior, are requested as a guest to the wedding of our beloved Prince Eldor's youngest sibling. Your presence will honor us. Kale had stared at the invitation for a long while. The royal family was known across galaxies for their strict codes of conduct, their complex ceremonies, and their warships, which could destroy planets if provoked. Kale was, well, he was not exactly royal material. He was a fighter, a wanderer, a man whose reputation had grown in the echoes of battlefields and arenas rather than in palaces. But curiosity and perhaps a hint of pride had won him over. Why not? He had muttered to himself. Humans aren't exactly unwelcome anywhere, are they? Now, standing among the strange architecture of Violia, Kale realized just how alien this world truly was. Buildings floated in midair, connected by bridges made of light that shimmered like liquid glass. The ground below was not solid but a glowing, translucent surface that rippled gently under his boots. Above, the sky was painted with two suns, one gold and one deep blue, casting overlapping shadows that danced across the city. Alien music floated through the air, a melody that felt alive, as if the notes themselves had skin and could touch him. Kale's human eyes scanned the crowd. Nobles of all shapes and sizes mingled, their bodies unlike anything he had seen before, some with 4 arms, some with scales that reflected the light, some with translucent skin that shimmered with the color of their emotions. And they were staring at him. Not in fear, not in hostility, but in curiosity. Look at the human, a voice whispered nearby. The one who fights like a storm and smiles like he owns the stars. Kale shrugged, trying to blend in, though he quickly realized that blending in was impossible. Humans, he had learned long ago, were unique in ways the galaxy could not ignore. He moved with a confidence that drew eyes, even when he wanted none. And as he made his way toward the main hall, he caught sight of her. Princess Lyra, the king's eldest daughter, stood at the far end of the hall. Even from a distance, Kale could tell she was extraordinary. Her skin glowed faintly, reflecting the colors of the room, and her eyes, large, luminous, and intelligent, seemed to study him with a quiet curiosity. She wore the ceremonial robes of her family, flowing garments that shimmered like liquid light, and around her neck rested a chain of gems that pulsed softly with energy. Kale paused. Most people, human or alien, were intimidated by royalty. But Lyra's gaze was not full of disdain or superiority. It was something else, interest, and maybe, just maybe, amusement. He cleared his throat and walked forward. Every step felt strange on the rippling platform beneath him, and he almost stumbled when a group of 4-armed nobles brushed past. Kale caught himself, offering a polite nod, though he doubted they understood human gestures. "Greetings," he said, his voice steady despite the alien chatter around him. "I am Kale Torson, honored to attend your ceremony." Lyra inclined her head slightly, a smile playing at the edges of her lips. "Kale Torson," she said, her voice melodic but firm, carrying authority without arrogance. "Your reputation precedes you, human. We are pleased you could join us." Kale felt a warmth in his chest. Compliments from royalty were rare for him, and he was not used to being appreciated outside the battlefield. "I would not miss it for the universe," he said. The rest of the ceremony was a blur of colors, sounds, and customs. Kale watched as the younger siblings of the royal family performed dances that defied gravity, floating and spinning through the air with movements that seemed impossible. Guests exchanged gifts in intricate rituals, each object glowing with energy that responded to the giver's emotions. Kale struggled to keep up with the protocol, but every misstep was forgiven, or at least ignored, because he was, after all, a human. During the grand feast, Kale sat among nobles who whispered and pointed at him constantly. He ate delicacies that shimmered, tasted like nothing he had ever experienced, and occasionally laughed at jokes he only half understood. Yet despite the alien nature of everything around him, Kale felt alive. He had faced death countless times, but this was a different kind of challenge. Navigating a world so unlike his own, without losing his identity, and more importantly, without offending anyone powerful enough to end him on a whim. And then it happened. A loud crack echoed through the main hall, followed by a rumble that made the floating platforms shiver. Guests gasped, some clutching their ornate robes, others attempting to stabilize floating objects. Kale's instincts kicked in immediately. His hand went to the hilt of his sidearm, though he knew weapons were forbidden in the hall. He scanned the room. A massive support beam, glowing with ceremonial energy, was destabilizing above the main platform. If it fell, dozens of nobles would be crushed. Kale didn't hesitate. With a sprint that surprised even himself, he ran under the beam, leapt, and caught it with both hands, steadying it against his shoulder. The energy crackled against his armor, tingling like a live wire, but Kale gritted his teeth and held firm. One by one, attendants rushed to secure the beam properly, and the immediate danger passed. The hall erupted into applause. Some cheered, others whispered about the human's bravery. Kale, slightly breathless, gave a humble nod, feeling eyes on him. Lyra's gaze lingered, a mixture of admiration and something else. Respect, yes, but also curiosity. "You are not like the others," she said quietly when she approached him later, her voice carrying a subtle warmth. "They would have panicked or simply watched. You act." Kale smiled, a little embarrassed. "Humans tend to do that. We act when we must, even if we don't fully understand the rules." Lyra laughed softly, a sound that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. "You are strange, and yet admirable. I think we will get along just fine." Kale's chest swelled, not with pride but with a quiet recognition. Here in this alien world, among beings who were not like him in any way, he had found something unexpected. Attention, yes, but also a connection. A spark of mutual understanding that transcended species. As the night wore on, Kale realized that attending this wedding might change more than just his schedule. It could change his destiny. And perhaps, in ways he could not yet imagine, even the destiny of an entire star system. By the time the two suns had dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Kale Torson knew one thing for certain. He had arrived not just as a guest, but as a force that would be remembered. And Princess Lyra. She was more than just a princess to him now. She was a symbol of everything he might fight for, everything he might protect, and everything that made humans remarkable. The morning light of Violia was unlike any Kale had ever seen. The twin suns painted the sky in shifting hues of gold and deep blue, and the floating city shimmered as if it were alive. Kale stood on the balcony of the royal guest quarters, taking in the breathtaking view. Below him, ceremonial platforms drifted gracefully over the glowing seas, decorated with luminous banners and intricate patterns that shifted with the breeze. He could hear the soft hum of the crowd assembling for the day's events, a sound both alien and strangely comforting. Despite the beauty, Kale's mind was alert. Yesterday's incident with the support beam had earned him attention, and he knew that today all eyes would be on him. Humans were rare here, and a human who acted boldly was almost unheard of in Zarithian society. He could feel the curious stares of nobles already, even before stepping outside. "Kale Torsen," a melodic voice called from behind him. Kale turned to see Princess Lyra approaching, her robes glinting like liquid starlight. She held herself with grace, yet there was a playful spark in her eyes. "You're up early," Kale said with a grin. "Even for a princess, the view must be too good to sleep through." Lyra smiled, her gaze flicking to the horizon. "Perhaps, or perhaps I am curious. Humans, you do not behave like the others. Even yesterday when chaos struck, you remained calm." Kale shrugged modestly. "It's simple. Panic doesn't help anyone. You act or you fail. Nothing fancy about it." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "And yet it is rare." "Very rare." Her smile softened. "Perhaps that is why you fascinate me." Kale's chest warmed at her words, though he hid it behind a casual nod. "I'm honored, Princess." The wedding ceremony of Prince Eldor's youngest sibling was the grandest Kale had ever witnessed. Nobles and dignitaries from across the galaxy had gathered, their outfits reflecting their worlds and cultures. Floating orbs of light served as attendants, carrying gifts, delicacies, and ceremonial items, all moving with precision as if guided by thought alone. The music was hypnotic, a living harmony of instruments and voices that seemed to touch emotions directly. Kale moved carefully among the crowd, trying to follow protocol while observing everything. But before long, he noticed whispers. Eyes followed him wherever he went. Some were admiring, others skeptical. He could hear snippets of conversation. "The human he saved the hall yesterday." He had long grown used to attention, some earned, some unwanted. His focus, as always, was on surviving, observing, and understanding. It was during the ceremonial procession that the moment came. The eldest daughter, Princess Lyra, was expected to perform a traditional ritual of light, where floating crystal orbs were released to symbolize peace and unity. Each orb carried a small energy pulse that harmonized with the performer's emotions. Lyra's pulse was steady, elegant, and precise, but when Kale saw her raise her hand, one of the orbs faltered, wobbling dangerously close to the crowd. Without thinking, Kale acted. He moved faster than most aliens could perceive, leaping into the path of the orb and catching it with both hands. The energy crackled across his palms, tingling sharply, but he held firm until the attendant stabilized the situation. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. No human had ever interacted with the ceremonial magic before, and survived. Lyra's eyes widened, and she stepped closer to Kale once the crowd's attention shifted back to the ritual. "You saved the ceremony again," she said softly, though there was no doubt her words carried amusement. "You do not follow rules, you act." Kale smiled, slightly embarrassed. "I act when it matters, and that orb could have hurt someone. Simple as that." Lyra studied him for a long moment, her gaze intense. "Humans are strange, but I find it admirable." The day continued with games, competitions, and diplomatic displays. Kale found himself reluctantly drawn into a duel demonstration, a ceremonial fight where guests showed skill and strategy without harming anyone. His opponents were skilled aliens, some with 4 arms, some with energy-based weaponry. Kale, relying on his human reflexes, strategy, and adaptability, outmaneuvered them with a combination of precision and intuition. Each move drew cheers from the audience, and murmurs about the remarkable human spread quickly. During a pause in the competitions, Kale found himself standing next to Lyra again. She had been watching him closely, her eyes following every movement, every decision. "You are impressive," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Your actions are unlike any I have seen among our people. You think quickly, act boldly, and yet you remain calm." Kale chuckled. "That's humans for you. We're good at surviving, and surviving well means thinking fast." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. "You are more than a warrior, you are clever. Perhaps that is why I am interested." Kale's breath caught slightly. He had expected curiosity, maybe admiration, but interest. That was new. For a moment he felt the pull of possibility, of something beyond battlefields and distant worlds. As the afternoon approached, the real challenge of the day emerged. A group of rival nobles, unhappy with the union being celebrated, attempted to disrupt the ceremony. They used cloaking devices to hide their approach and carried strange weapons capable of creating chaos among the ceremonial platforms. Kale, ever alert, noticed subtle disturbances, ripples in the air, odd shadows, a faint hum that signaled approaching energy. Without hesitation, he leapt into action. Using his human instincts and experience, he anticipated the rivals' moves, disarmed them quickly, and protected the guests. His methods were unconventional, blending hand-to-hand combat with improvisation that the aliens could barely comprehend. The hall erupted in astonishment. The human had done what no alien could: turn a chaotic attack into a controlled outcome without anyone being harmed. Lyra, observing closely, felt a thrill of admiration and something deeper: trust, respect, and a sense that Kale could be relied upon in ways no other guest could. After the danger had passed, the king approached Kale personally. His voice, deep and commanding, carried authority and approval. "You have acted with courage and intelligence beyond what we expected," he said. "You are, unlike any human we have known. The safety of this court and my daughter's respect are in your hands." "I acknowledge your strength," Kale bowed slightly. "I serve as I can, your majesty, that is all I ask." Lyra stepped forward, her smile softening. "You do not just fight, Kale Torsen. You understand, you protect, and perhaps you belong here more than anyone would think." As night fell, the guests gathered for the final celebration. Lights shimmered across the floating city, and music filled the air. Kale stood beside Lyra on a platform overlooking the glowing seas. The city below reflected the stars above, creating a world that seemed magical, infinite, and alive. "You have survived your first day among us," Lyra said, her voice gentle, "and you have done so admirably. I am curious to see what the next days will bring." Kale smiled, feeling a rare sense of peace. "I will do my best. Humans are good at surprising people." Lyra laughed softly, a sound that resonated in Kale's chest. "Yes, you are already surprising me." For the first time in his life, Kale felt that the universe was full of possibilities beyond war, beyond survival, beyond what he had ever imagined. And beside him, Princess Lyra's presence promised new challenges, new adventures, and perhaps something even more extraordinary. The night stretched on, the twin moons of Violia casting silver light across the city, and Kale Torsen realized that he was no longer merely a guest. He had become a part of this world, in ways that could change not only his life but the fate of the entire Violian cluster. And deep down, he knew that this was only the beginning. The morning sun rose slowly over Violia, casting long, golden shadows across the floating platforms and the glowing seas below. Kale Torsen, still adjusting to the rhythm of alien life, stood at the edge of the royal gardens. The previous day's events, saving the ceremony, impressing the court, and earning Princess Lyra's attention, had left him both exhausted and exhilarated. But today promised challenges unlike any he had faced. The royal palace was preparing for the grand finale of the wedding celebrations, a display of diplomacy, combat skill, and ceremonial grandeur. Ambassadors and nobles from dozens of systems would gather to witness Violia's power and unity. The halls were filled with shimmering banners, floating lights, and exotic creatures that Kale had never seen before. Every detail was designed to impress, intimidate, and secure alliances. Kale felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Lyra, her robes flowing like liquid starlight, eyes bright with curiosity and warmth. "You look ready," she said, a playful smile on her lips. "Or perhaps you look ready to survive another day among us," Kale smirked. "Surviving has become second nature. Impressing the court, well, that is a challenge of its own. Lyra laughed softly. Perhaps it is not impressing the court you should worry about. Perhaps it is the hearts of those you have already impressed. Kale felt his chest warm at her words. Humans were not used to royalty speaking so openly, yet Lyra carried her authority and honesty with a rare grace. He had faced death countless times, but her presence was more challenging than any enemy, because it demanded not strength, but connection. The grand ceremony began with a parade of alien warriors, each demonstrating martial skill and discipline. Kale found himself standing among them, a human in the middle of beings who could fly, manipulate energy, or wield four arms with deadly precision. He could feel the eyes of the court on him, waiting to see what a human would do. And then it happened. A sudden alarm rang through the palace, a sound unlike anything Kale had ever heard, a high-pitched hum combined with a deep vibration that shook the platforms. Some guests gasped, others froze in fear. The king's advisors rushed toward the central hall and whispers filled the air. Rival faction, attacking, destabilizing the ceremony. Kale didn't hesitate. His human instincts kicked in. He scanned the platforms, observing subtle disturbances, a ripple in the floating light bridges, a strange shift in the crowd, and glimpses of cloaked figures moving with dangerous intent. He could not rely on alien methods alone. His own training, strategy, improvisation, and raw reflexes would be the key. He sprinted toward the threat, leaping across floating platforms with agility that surprised even the aliens. The attackers were fast, but Kale's intuition and human unpredictability gave him an edge. He disarmed one with a swift move, using his weight and timing rather than sheer strength. Another tried to destabilize a platform, but Kale caught it mid-collapse, redirecting the energy safely into the air. The crowd watched in awe. No alien had acted with such combination of courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Kale was like a force of nature, unpredictable and unstoppable, yet precise and controlled. Princess Lyra, observing closely, felt a surge of admiration and trust. She had seen warriors before, both human and alien, but none had moved with such clarity under pressure. Kale was not merely fighting. He was thinking, predicting, protecting. And for the first time, Lyra realized that her feelings for him went beyond curiosity. When the final attacker was subdued, Kale stood amidst the remnants of chaos, breathing heavily but unshaken. The crowd erupted into cheers, applause, and murmurs of amazement. The king approached him, his expression a mixture of authority and approval. "You have acted with bravery and intelligence," the king said, his voice deep and commanding. "No human has ever done what you have done. You have protected not only my family but the honor of this court. I commend you." Kale bowed slightly. "It was necessary, your majesty." "No one should be harmed under my watch." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You are more than a warrior, Kale Torsen. You understand responsibility. You understand protection and loyalty, perhaps more than any alien could." Kale felt the weight of her words. He had always fought for survival, for honor, for justice. But her words hinted at something deeper: partnership, trust, even love. And in that moment, a bold thought formed in his mind, one that had never occurred to him in any battlefield. Perhaps he could claim a place not just in the court, but in her heart. As the crowd settled and the ceremony resumed, Kale sought a private moment with Lyra. They stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing seas, the twin moons casting silver light across the city. "I need to speak with you," Kale said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Lyra tilted her head. "Of course. Speak freely, Kale. You have proven you can act in ways few can imagine. Now let us hear your words." Kale took a deep breath. "I have fought many battles, seen countless worlds, and survived dangers that most would not. But here, among your people, I feel something I've never felt before. Not fear, not honor, not duty, something else, and I cannot ignore it." Lyra listened silently, her gaze never leaving his. "I want to be more than a guest," Kale continued, his voice firm. "I want to stand beside you, Princess Lyra. Not as a protector alone, but as a partner, a companion, a husband. I propose we unite, not just in spirit, but in bond. I know this is unprecedented. I know humans have never married into royalty, but I ask for your hand and your trust." For a moment, silence fell. The world seemed to hold its breath. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise, and Kale's own heart beat faster, fearing rejection, fear, or disbelief. Then she smiled, a slow, radiant smile that illuminated her face and eased the tension in his chest. "You would marry me?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with both amusement and sincerity. "A human with courage, wit, and a sense of duty unlike any I have seen. You truly surprise me, Kale Torson." Kale nodded. "I do not ask lightly. I ask because I see potential, strength, and honor in our union. Together, we can bridge worlds, face dangers, and create something stronger than either of us alone." Lyra's expression softened. "Your words are bold, as are your actions. You have proven yourself in ways no alien could. And yet, this is still a human proposal. It is unexpected." Kale stepped closer. "I understand the risk, but my heart, my actions, and my intentions are true. I do not fear the challenge." Lyra looked into his eyes for a long moment. Then, with a decisive nod, she said, "Very well, Kale Torson. If you are willing to stand by me, to respect my people, and to honor both our worlds, I accept your proposal." Kale felt a surge of relief, joy, and pride. "I will honor you, Princess. I swear it." Lyra smiled, a mix of amusement and sincerity. "Then let the court know. Let them witness that a human stands beside the royal family not as a guest, but as an equal, a partner, a husband." The announcement shook the court. Whispers spread like wildfire. No human had ever married into Zarithian royalty. Some nobles frowned, some gasped, some murmured approval. But the king stepped forward, his expression calm but commanding. "This union," he said, his voice echoing across the hall, "represents courage, honor, and vision. Kale Torson has proven himself worthy. He has protected our people, shown intelligence beyond measure, and earned the respect of my daughter. I grant my blessing." The hall erupted into applause. Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on Kale's arm. Together, they faced the crowd, a symbol of unity, courage, and the extraordinary power of a human spirit. As the celebrations continued, Kale and Lyra spoke quietly, planning the future, sharing dreams, and imagining possibilities. Kale realized that his life had changed in ways he had never expected. From a wandering warrior to a partner of a princess, he had not only survived but had reshaped his destiny, and perhaps the destiny of an entire star system. And deep inside, Kale knew that the true challenges were only beginning. But for the first time, he did not fear them. For he had found not just a cause, but a companion, a partner, and a future worth fighting for. The stars above Virlia sparkled as if in approval, and Kale Torson smiled, ready to face whatever came next, together with Princess Lyra by his side. The palace of Virlia was alive with celebration. Floating banners shimmered in the twin suns, reflecting every color of the spectrum. Nobles and dignitaries from across star systems mingled, exchanging gifts and stories. The wedding of Prince Eldor's youngest sibling was over, but the court now had a new focus. Kale Torson, the human warrior who had married Princess Lyra, the king's eldest daughter. Kale walked beside Lyra through the grand hall, adjusting to the feeling of being no longer just a guest but a member of the royal family. Every eye was on him, some with curiosity, others with skepticism, but Kale carried himself with quiet confidence. Humans had faced hostile worlds and deadly opponents before. Navigating the politics of an alien court was only a different kind of challenge. Lyra's hand brushed against his as they moved through the crowd. "You handle this well," she whispered. "I expected more tension." Kale smiled, Humans adapt, always, and I'm learning fast. Besides, I have a good teacher. Lyra laughed softly, and Kale felt a warmth in his chest. Their bond was no longer new or uncertain. It had been tested in the chaos of the ceremonies, in the threats that had emerged, and in the quiet moments they had shared. Together, they felt unstoppable. Despite the celebration, danger still lurked. Rival systems had not forgotten the power of the Virelian throne, and news of Kale's unconventional marriage had reached enemies who despised the idea of a human in the royal family. That very night, as the stars reflected on the glowing seas below the floating palace, Kale and Lyra were alerted to suspicious activity at the city gates. Kale's instincts kicked in immediately. He moved swiftly to the balcony overlooking the gates, scanning for any signs of intrusion. Energy signatures flickered across the sensors, small vessels attempting to breach the palace perimeter. Lyra's eyes narrowed. They are bold. They know the court is celebrating. They assume we are distracted, Kale nodded. Then they've underestimated us. Let's make sure they regret it. Together, they moved toward the command center, where Kale quickly analyzed the incoming threats. Using a combination of human intuition and the alien technology at his disposal, he devised a plan. The enemy ships would attempt to bypass the shields, but Kale and the Virelian defense units could intercept them efficiently if they acted decisively. As the first vessels approached, Kale gave orders with a calm authority that drew the attention of every officer in the room. Target the lead ship. Focus energy pulses on their propulsion. Do not destroy civilians or nearby structures. Move quickly and precisely. Lyra watched in admiration as Kale coordinated the defense. Humans had a way of thinking differently, unpredictable, yet effective. Within minutes, the enemy ships were disabled, drifting harmlessly in the sea-lit sky. The palace had been protected, the citizens safe, and Kale had proven once again why he was exceptional. The next day, Kale and Lyra held a council with representatives from Virelia and allied systems. The attack had sent a clear message. Rival powers would not hesitate to challenge the throne. Kale's human perspective brought fresh ideas to the table. We need a strategy that combines both our technology and our strengths, Kale explained. Alien fleets are strong, but they can be outmaneuvered with speed, unpredictability, and coordination. Humans think in ways aliens do not anticipate. That is our advantage. Some of the older nobles raised skeptical eyes, but Lyra spoke for Kale. He is right. Kale has proven his value not only in combat but in strategy. We must listen. Kale outlined a defense network that integrated human tactics with Virelian energy technology, creating a system that could detect threats, neutralize them, and adapt in real time. The council debated, questioned, and finally agreed. Humans and Virelians had never worked together in such a way, but Kale's approach showed that collaboration could lead to unmatched strength. In the following weeks, Kale and Lyra began bridging cultural gaps. Kale learned the language of diplomacy, the subtleties of alien etiquette, and the customs of Virelian society. Lyra, in turn, learned from Kale's human perspective, directness, boldness, and an instinctive sense of when action mattered more than protocol. One evening, they stood on a balcony overlooking the floating city, stars reflecting on the glowing seas below. "You have changed this court," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying both pride and affection. "And not just in defense or strategy, but in spirit." "Humans, you bring something new," Kale smiled. "Humans are strange, yes. We fight, survive, adapt. But we also inspire if we are allowed to, and I think we are stronger together." Lyra leaned close, her eyes shining. "Stronger, indeed." Kale took her hand, feeling a bond that was deeper than any battlefield connection he had ever known. He realized that this partnership was more than marriage. It was an alliance, a promise, and a force that could change the course of history. News of Kale's success spread across the star systems. Humans, once considered outsiders, were now recognized as allies of Vyrlia. Kale received messages from leaders seeking counsel, warriors asking for training, and diplomats requesting cooperation. It was unprecedented. A single human had earned the respect and trust of an alien royal court, yet Kale remained humble. "I do not seek glory," he told Lyra one night. "I seek protection for her, for this people, for the future we can build." Lyra smiled. "And that is why you are extraordinary. Humans think differently, act differently, and yet you always know the right thing to do." Their bond grew stronger as the seasons passed. Kale trained Vyrlian warriors, blending human techniques with alien combat styles. He introduced new strategies, coordinated defenses, and helped establish alliances that no one had thought possible. Lyra stood by his side, learning, advising, and contributing to decisions that shaped not only the court but the galaxy beyond. Months later, Kale and Lyra faced their first joint mission beyond Vyrlia. A rogue system threatened nearby colonies, using advanced stealth technology and mercenary fleets to raid peaceful worlds. The king entrusted Kale and Lyra to lead a joint human-Vyrlian task force. Kale surveyed the fleet, analyzing both human and alien ships, weapons, and defenses. "We move fast, strike smart, and adapt constantly. Predictable tactics will fail. We use our strengths, human intuition, Vyrlian technology, and teamwork to overwhelm them." Lyra nodded. "And we must remember our alliance is more than strategy. It is trust. We fight not just with weapons but with unity." The battle that followed was fierce. Enemy ships moved with cunning, exploiting every weakness. But Kale's human thinking, combined with Vyrlian energy technology and Lyra's tactical brilliance, turned the tide. Ships moved unpredictably, attacks were coordinated, and enemy fleets were neutralized with minimal losses. Kale's improvisation saved countless lives, and Lyra's leadership inspired the Allies. By the time the dust settled, the rogue system had been subdued. Kale and Lyra stood together on the command deck of the lead ship, their hands brushing, a silent acknowledgement of victory and partnership. "We did it," Lyra said, a hint of amazement in her voice. Kale smiled. "Together, that's the key." The return to Vyrlia was triumphant. Citizens cheered, banners floated, and nobles bowed in respect. Kale had not only defended the realm but had solidified the bond between humans and Vyrlians. He had proven that humans were not just warriors. They were visionaries, allies, and partners capable of shaping the future. That evening, Kale and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city, the twin moons casting silver light across the waters. "Kale," Lyra said softly, "you have changed everything here. You have shown that humans are more than strength. You have shown courage, wisdom, and heart." Kale took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I did what I could, but it was you who made it possible. Together we are stronger than any enemy, any system, any challenge." Lyra smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And together we will face whatever comes next." Kale looked out over the city, the stars reflecting in the seas below. For the first time in his life, he felt that he was exactly where he belonged, not just as a warrior, not just as a human, but as a partner, a protector, and a force for hope in a galaxy that had never seen anything like him. And as the twin moons shone above, Kale Torsen and Princess Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of dangers, wonders, and possibilities, and together they were ready to meet it all.